Star Wars under George Lucas wasn't perfect, but it had vision. Under Disney, it had budget. Big difference. Because love it or hate it, Lucas was swinging for the fences. Political intrigue, chosen one prophecy, Jedi philosophy, he went deep. And now, looking back, you start to realize, even the clunkiest moments had purpose. Meanwhile, Disney gave us billion-dollar visuals, legacy characters, and crowd-pleasing callbacks. But something feels hollow, right? This isn't just another Disney ruined it video. It's a breakdown of what Lucasfilm actually did better, and why those creative choices still echo way louder than anything the sequels ever tried to say. Say what you want about George Lucas, but the dude had guts. The prequels, they weren't made to sell toys or ride a wave of nostalgia. Lucas went full political drama with Trade Federation blockades, Senate corruption, and the slow decay of a democracy. That's not exactly light popcorn fare, but it made the galaxy feel real, messy, tangled in systems that mirrored our own world. And then there's Anakin's fall. Lucas didn't just hand us a villain. He showed us how a good kid becomes Darth Vader. Slowly, painfully, through loss, ego, fear, manipulation. The guy literally wrote a space opera tragedy and bet his reputation on it. People love to dunk on Hayden Christensen's acting, but over time, fans started to realize the arc was way deeper than they gave it credit for. We watched a war hero lose his soul, not in one big moment, but in 100 tiny choices. And here's the thing, Lucas didn't care if you liked it. That's what made it authentic. He wasn't chasing approval. He was telling the story he believed needed to be told. No test screenings, no rewrites by committee, just raw vision. Lucas knew where the story started, and exactly where it had to end. That kind of creative confidence is rare in blockbuster filmmaking. Even the world building reflected that boldness. Every planet had a distinct culture. The Jedi weren't perfect monks. They were flawed, arrogant, vulnerable to collapse. It all added up to something bigger than just lightsaber fights and cool ships. It was myth. It was commentary. It was Star Wars with a soul. Now compare that bold, messy vision to what Disney brought to the table. The sequel trilogy, it's shiny. It's got huge moments, top-tier visuals, and some legit emotional beats. But under all that polish, it plays it safe. Way too safe. The Force Awakens isn't bad. It's fun. But it's basically a remix of A New Hope. Then, The Last Jedi comes in, flips the board, and tries to challenge expectations. Cool. But then, The Rise of Skywalker hits undo on everything. It feels like 3 filmmakers telling 3 different stories, while Disney tried to please every corner of the fandom at once. There's no vision driving the trilogy, just reaction. No foundation, no long-term plan. And Disney leans hard on nostalgia. Death Star 3.0, check. Random legacy cameos, check. Empire vs. Rebels again, with slightly different names, yup. The sequels didn't build, they borrowed, like a best-of album with none of the risks that made the originals iconic. And politics, basically wiped from the board. Remember when the New Republic gets nuked in 10 seconds in The Force Awakens? That should have been massive. Instead, we move on without explanation. No Senate, no galactic tension, no real sense of what the First Order even is. Characters like Rey, Finn, and Poe had serious potential, but their arcs felt aimless, especially Finn. He went from child soldier to sidekick, with almost no real growth. These weren't bad characters. They were just stuck in a story that didn't know what to do with them. Disney had everything: money, actors, hype. But what it lacked? A clear voice. A storyteller willing to say, this is the story, and we're sticking with it. One of the clearest differences between Lucasfilm and Disney's Star Wars? Characters. Under Lucas, characters were messy. They made terrible choices. They had growth that was slow, sometimes painful, and often frustrating, just like real people. Anakin's arc is the perfect example. It spans 3 films and takes him from hopeful kid to a man consumed by fear and rage. It wasn't clean, it wasn't pretty, but it was powerful. Even supporting characters like Obi-Wan evolved. He starts out sarcastic and unsure, and ends up broken, burdened by guilt, and still clinging to hope. Padme goes from strong leader to a symbol of loss. Each one serves the larger narrative and leaves a mark on the saga. Now, look at the sequels. Rey is introduced as a mystery box. Who is she? Why is she so strong? Where does she come from? Those questions carry her through 3 films, and the answers shift depending on the movie. She starts as no one, becomes Palpatine's granddaughter, and then decides she's a Skywalker, somehow. Her internal conflict never hits the same emotional depth as Anakin's, or even Luke's. Finn? Man, they dropped the ball hard. He starts off amazing. Stormtrooper who defects, haunted by his past, possibly Force-sensitive. Then he becomes background noise, comic relief. His journey barely progresses beyond movie 1. Poe had the swagger and charisma to rival Han Solo, but he never truly leads. He's always bouncing off someone else's plot and rarely drives his own. Lucasfilm gave us characters who changed, who failed, who dealt with loss, power, betrayal. Disney gave us characters that looked cool on posters, but didn't always have arcs that stuck. It's not the actor's fault. The writing just didn't take them where they needed to go. Let's talk about one of Lucasfilm's biggest flexes, world building. When George Lucas built Star Wars, he didn't just create cool planets. He built a galaxy that felt ancient, lived in. Political systems, cultures, religions, even economics, it all existed under the surface. Tatooine wasn't just a desert. It was a dying outer rim planet with slavery, crime syndicates, and no love for the Republic. Coruscant wasn't just a shiny city. It was the heart of a crumbling democracy, drowning in bureaucracy and manipulated from the shadows. Lucas trusted the audience to keep up. The Jedi Code, the Clone Wars, the Sith Rule of Two. You didn't need every detail explained in a pop-up video. You just felt the weight of history through the way characters talked and moved through the world. Now compare that to the Disney era. The sequels throw us back into a galactic conflict, but we barely know who's fighting. Who even is the First Order? How did they rise from the ashes of the Empire? Where did they get the resources to build yet another Death Star? Sorry, Starkiller Base? No one tells us. Planets get blown up with zero emotional weight because we've spent no time there. There's no Senate, no central government, just vague resistance versus First Order branding. Even the planets feel thin. Starkiller Base, just Hoth with a laser cannon. Crate, visually stunning but culturally hollow. Where's the depth, the lore? Lucasfilm made Star Wars feel like a mythology passed down over generations. Disney's version often feels like it's written one film at a time, focused more on spectacle than substance. And Palpatine's return? Somehow he returned. No setup, no lore, just vibes. Lucas built a galaxy. Disney built a franchise. One thing Lucas nailed: tone. Star Wars wasn't just action and lasers. It was layered, epic, emotional, even philosophical. At times, it was dark, political, tragic, and it wasn't afraid to slow down and let the weight of a moment sink in. The prequels especially leaned into emotional complexity. We watched Anakin spiral, not because he was evil, but because he was scared, insecure, angry. The tone of those films matched the descent, quiet tension, shifting loyalties. Palpatine's manipulation wasn't loud. It was subtle and chilling. There was an atmosphere, a gravity. The galaxy felt like it was crumbling, one decision at a time. Even the music reflected that. Duel of the Fates, Anakin's betrayal, Padme's ruminations. They hit hard because the tone made space for them. Lucas allowed tragedy to unfold naturally, even if it wasn't fun or fast-paced. He trusted that the audience would feel it. Now jump to Disney. There's an MCU-style polish to everything. A fast pace. A joke after every serious line. Moments that should land emotionally often get undercut by humor or rush storytelling. Like, remember when Chewie supposedly dies in Rise of Skywalker? That fake-out barely lasts a minute. No time to feel anything before we're off chasing another plot MacGuffin. Or, how about Luke in The Last Jedi? That's a huge emotional arc. A disillusioned legend rediscovering purpose. But the tone jumps between satire, cynicism, and slapstick. Milking space walruses? That's the moment we're supposed to take seriously. It's not that Disney can't do emotion. They can. There are moments that land. But overall, they don't let scenes breathe. They don't linger in the pain or aftermath. Lucas used tone to build myth. Disney uses tone to keep it moving. Here's the big one: legacy. When we talk about Star Wars, we're not just talking about movies. We're talking about cultural landmarks, generational touchstones. So, how will each era be remembered? Lucasfilm's legacy is messy but iconic. The prequels were hated, then memed, then quietly reevaluated. And now, they're loved. Not because they were perfect, but because they were distinct. They had a voice. They had ambition. Kids who grew up with them now see what Lucas was aiming for. A galaxy shaped by politics, emotion, and tragedy. A hero's fall, a republic's collapse, a warning about power and fear, and say what you want. Those movies stuck with people. They became part of the cultural fabric because they were bold, because they took big swings. Now look at Disney's trilogy. It made billions. It launched merch, theme park rides, tie-ins, everything. But the conversation around it, fragmented, divisive. People can't even agree if the story makes sense. And for a saga built on myth and meaning, that's a rough spot to be in. It's telling that the most celebrated Star Wars projects in recent years, like Andor, Rogue One, and even parts of The Mandalorian, don't rely on the Skywalker legacy. They build new ground. They feel more like Lucas's galaxy, morally complex, character-driven, willing to slow down. Lucasfilm built something foundational, a mythos, a lens through which entire generations explored good, evil, power, and identity. Disney, for all its production value and scale, added sequels that felt more like brand maintenance than myth-making. Legacy isn't about box office, it's about impact, and Lucas's impact, still unmatched. This isn't about hating Disney or worshiping Lucas. It's about recognizing what made Star Wars feel timeless, and why parts of it don't hit the same anymore. Lucasfilm wasn't perfect, but it had soul, purpose, vision. Disney brought spectacle, but some of that spark faded. If you've made it this far, you clearly care about this galaxy too. So, let's talk. What do you think Lucas did better? And what, if anything, did Disney actually improve? Drop your thoughts in the comments and be sure to like and subscribe so you never miss a video.